welcome to Realtor's Toolbox. I'm Lucy Kern with Loving Life with Lucy Kern. We got Realtor Rich over here.
Hi, everybody.
And Michelle Hawes, the Hawes Hunter.
Hi.
So today we are going to be discussing about how to pass a real estate exam. And there's going to be a part 1 and a part 2. And part 1 will be studying on the academics of real estate. And part 2 will be how to prepare yourself mentally. With these tips and skills that we will be discussing today, this will increase your chances of passing the real estate exam. It's essential to prepare effectively. Here are some tips and to help you succeed. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to the Hawes Hunter.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, we definitely want to talk about how to pass that test. It's very important, very hard test. So for those of our friends who live in California, it is 150 questions, all multiple choice, and they give you 3 hours to complete that. And that might not sound like a very hard test, 150 questions, but they can stump you sometimes. So we're going to be really careful on this test. And actually in California, 42% pass the first time. That's a pretty high failure rate actually for this particular test. It's hard. A lot of people say they take it twice, they take it 3 times. And so we're going to talk about how to study for that test, how to be ready for that test. If you live in another state, let me see, in Colorado, 50% pass the first time, getting a little better, Colorado. In Texas, 58% pass the first time, and in Nevada, 75%. There are different laws in different states, and the tests are a little bit different, and it depends where you are. So if you're in another state, you got to know how much time do you have, how many questions am I going to have, and be ready for those things. And it's hard. And a lot of people say how hard the test is. So the number 2 point I want to make is study for the exam. If you go online, you'll find a lot of different companies that offer the classes online. You'll take 3 classes. One is a principles class, one is called practices, and the other is an elective. So you have a couple of choices for your elective. And for whatever classes you pick, study. If you have a book that you order and you like it that way, underline, highlight, do it. If you prefer to be online, if you prefer to make your own flashcards, find a buddy who's also studying something, whatever works for you, do it. You cannot overstudy on this test. So yeah, just do what works for you.
Yep. All right. So I want to jump into something that I'm really passionate about for people preparing to take the real estate exam. And it doesn't matter what state you're in. And I don't want anybody to be discouraged today by hearing about how difficult it is and how many people, what percentage are passing or not passing. Because one thing I have found is the people that don't pass generally will also confess that they didn't really invest enough time studying and preparing for the exam. Yeah. So I'm super big on practice tests and sample questions. You want to drill down on this content over and over and over and over again. If you can get enough practice questions and practice exams, ideally you want to be scoring about 95% or higher. And it's just going to be critical to your success to do lots of exams so that you become familiar with the content and the types of questions that you're going to be seeing. So the other part of it is you want to improve your time management in the exam and identify areas that maybe you're struggling with or that you need to focus on a little bit more before you actually go take the exam. You can kind of recognize things that maybe you need to work on a little bit more before you get there. And then you want to review both correct and incorrect answers to kind of deepen the understanding you have of the content. So another thing that's really important that I'd like to say when you're going over and reviewing practice questions and doing practice exams, you're going to see the same questions over and over and over and over and over again. It's going to be easy to memorize those questions in your practice exams. You want to be really careful not to just memorize the practice questions and the answers from the practice material. You want to make sure that you understand what it is. So one thing I would highly recommend is when you read the question, make sure you read all of the answers. It's going to be a multiple choice unless you're in some unique state where they're doing something different, but it's multiple choice. Read all the answers, then choose. And then once you choose, don't go back and change your answer. It's never good to go back and change. We'll probably cover that a little bit more later. The other one is utilizing study resources. So Michelle mentioned earlier, you've got your books and the courses that you did in the beginning. Now you're going to have practice exams, practice questions, but then you also want to use other materials, online courses, video lectures. I like Prep Agent is a good one. You can go on YouTube. You can get lots of other explanations. You want to have an understanding of the concepts, and you don't have to memorize the questions. That's not the point, because the questions that you're practicing are probably not going to be identical to what you're going to see on the exam. So what you want to do is practice the content to the level that you understand it, so that when you see it on the exam, you're going to recognize what the answer is. So when you're done practicing, you don't need to be able to regurgitate everything you've studied. You need to be able to see it on the exam and recognize what that content is. What do those terms mean? How does that apply, so that you can answer correctly? And let's see, one last point. These resources can provide comprehensive coverage and offer strategies for exam prep and test taking. And we're going to cover more of that later as well. So that pretty much covers it for me. I'm going to pass it on to Loving Life with Lucy Curran.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Michelle. Great tips so far. So one of the key things also is to make sure that you join study groups or seek guidance. For instance, engage with fellow aspiring real estate professionals by joining study groups or forums. Collaborating with others can help you clarify doubt, share knowledge, and gain different perspectives on challenging topics, right? And consider seeking guidance from experienced real estate agents and mentors who provide valuable insights and advice. Rich right here is my mentor, and, you are my colleague and mentor to Michelle. There are certain things that we all could collaborate on if I'm unsure of, especially becoming a new agent. I want to learn from somebody who's sold houses, who's, received a paycheck in their hand, right? And have gone through the process from point A to Z, because I want to make sure that I do it right and I do it correctly. Because even prep, no matter how much stuff you read, no matter how much you study for your actual test, it's nothing like when you actually go out there and are in person doing the legwork as well. Okay, so very, very important that if you want to thrive, and you want to thrive quickly, as soon as you get your real estate exam and you pass that bad boy, then you know what? Be proactive. Go do open house with somebody, shadow somebody, because that's what I did. Okay, and it helped a lot. It got me up and running immediately. Now, the next one would be creating a study schedule, right? So establish a structured study plan to ensure consistent and focused preparation. Break down the exam content into manageable sections and allocate dedicated time slots for each. Regularly review and revise previously covered material to reinforce your understanding.
Something I might add in at that point, just really quickly.
Absolutely.
When you're doing practice questions, if you don't understand the material, I would go through a whole section of material, and then you're feeling pretty good about it. Set that aside, move on to the next section. Go through all of that. Now you're starting to feel good there. Now jump back and review the first part again, so you can reinforce it. So true success in prepping for exams comes from spaced repetition. So now you get good on the second section you've been studying and practicing. Now move on to the third, then go back and do the second, and then go back again and do the first, so that you're reinforcing what you've been 100%. Studying. It's a great little strategy to help you just do that. Now, after you've done 4 or 5 different little groupings of questions, you may want to set that whole grouping aside and then move on. Right. But the repetition will help you to really become familiar with it.
100%. Rich nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is definitely a marathon, right? It is not a
Yes,
sprint. You're not going to swoop in here and in a few days nail the whole thing. It's not going to happen.
And
This is
procrastination is not going to get you anywhere. I've procrastinated. Yes, I was one of the ones that did not pass my first time, okay, or my second, okay, and I will be honest about it. But because it was a lot of it had to do with procrastination. So finding and creating that study schedule is very vital.
Yeah. And it's easy to procrastinate with something that's kind of hard, right? Some of the terms in the test, it's like a foreign language. Some of the things
that's
they're
right.
talking about, you're like,
Over your head.
bounds? Who has used that ever since the test, right? How many
Yes,
how many feet in an acre?
exactly.
I today have
I
to
still
think,
have to look it up.
right? Hold on, I got a smartphone here. I'm gonna, look it up real fast. There's a lot of things you'll never use again, but you do
That's
need to
right.
study it, right? Back
That's
what you
right.
were saying about those tests, yeah, definitely do those tests, but I would also say start with those practice exams when you've completed your classes. You will frustrate
Yes.
yourself to no end if you do one class and then I'm going to do some practice exams. You're going to really discourage yourself. Do
Right.
all three classes, then start on some practice exams, and that will help you. When you do that first practice exam, you will be surprised how bad it's going to be. But it's
Yep.
okay. Like, you're going to be pretty miserable in the beginning, and don't think, oh my goodness, real estate sucks. Don't put those two things together. They are not together. The world of real estate and your experience of it is different than the test. The test is hard, get through it, and then we'll have some fun together. So
That's
it,
right.
it will be a lot better. So another
And
point.
that's a really good point, Michelle. So you want to do your first courses. Now
Yeah.
you're prepping for the exam. Do everything it takes to pass that exam. And
Yeah.
then you're going to deepen your knowledge in real estate practice once you've got the
Yes.
license. And your knowledge is just going to, your knowledge base will continue to expand the entire time you have your license.
Constantly.
Yeah.
So,
The learning curve is like that, right? Here
yeah,
is your test over here. And then once you get some experience, you're like, no way, we do all this stuff.
That's
So
right.
yeah, it's going to be it's amazing. It's definitely amazing. It's a year of
yeah,
growth for sure. I'm not that
yes,
it would take you a year to pass a test, but the first 12 months where you start studying and then where you end up doing a couple deals, then there's a lot you learn in that time.
yeah,
So definitely good points there. I kind of want to touch on managing your anxiety. I particularly am a nervous test taker. So, and they kind of make it that way a little bit. When you walk in, they say, hey, there's a locker, put all your stuff in the locker. So I put my purse in there and my notebook, and you might as well keep your phone in there. She made me take my watch off. And I had a t-shirt on and a zip up hoodie, and she said to me, the lady who was administering the exam said to me, are you going to keep that sweatshirt on? Because if you're going to keep it on, you have to keep it on. But if you're going to take it off, you have to take it off now. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know. I guess I'm going to keep it on. I don't know if the room is cold or what. I would also say walk in
Freezing.
feeling comfortable. And she wanted to check my arms. Did I have any writing? She says, roll up your sleeves, pull up your sleeves. And I'm like, okay. And so she
You
was
got a
looking at
thorough
my
gal.
arms, and she was looking at my hands and had me take my watch off, like I said. And then here is your mouse, and it says 15 on it. And here is your calculator and your mouse pad. You don't get your phone. That's staying outside. So they're already kind of setting you up for this environment that made me nervous. There's a young lady sitting in the front of the room. There's a young lady sitting on the side of the room and one in the back. And those three people are watching the people take a test. So there is no kind of cheating. I mean, if you're going to cheat, I don't know how you're going to do it. But so you
yeah,
know what? You're okay. You're okay. You're there to take a test. You've prepared for the test. You're ready. You have your mouse that she gave you or he gave you, and a mouse pad and a little calculator. You don't have a phone, you don't have a notebook, you don't have your purse, you don't have anything. But you know what? You got it. Just know that you got it. You studied for it. You're ready. Let's do this, right? So when I sat down at the desk and my monitor is under a flat piece of glass for security reasons, right? And when I sat there, I had to say to myself, you're okay. Take a breath. You got it. And begin, right? And the very first thing it asks you is your name Michelle Haas? Yes, it is. So we start there, right? And I had to pace myself because I get to be a little nervous and take a second with a question. Don't take too long. Take a second with the question and keep going. And kind of know that they are careful with the test takers, and that's okay. That's their job. But I'm okay because I walk in ready, right? So
that's right.
It's going to be all right. And if you're nervous when you walk in, just say, I'm okay. I'm going to be fine. Even if you fail, you're going to be fine. Because in 2.5 weeks, you can take it again and you can study some more and you can keep going. That's the way it's going to be. So you're okay.
But you will pass the first time around, okay?
You're going to pass the first time.
Yeah.
All right.
But in the event you don't, it's okay.
That's right.
Now you know what to expect, and you've got a little bit of time to go study some more, and you'll have a way to focus on areas that maybe you need to spend a little more time. You kind of know what section to work on.
Yes.
It'd be great.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump into the next section, which kind of ties into what Michelle was just talking about, and that is familiarizing yourself with exam procedures. Because it's going to be really important for you not to be scrambling around the morning of the exam, especially if you schedule a morning time.
Yeah.
You're going to be getting up extra early. So what you want to do is you want to read through what are the instructions that are provided to you in advance. Read everything. Understand everything about the things that Michelle was talking about. They're not going to let you bring anything into the exam, but you want to know where you're going. When does your exam start? How much time will they allow? If you can find out how many questions there are, that gives you an idea. You kind of know. What identification do they want to see? Do they need a picture ID? Probably so. Mm-hmm. Maybe a driver's license is sufficient. And then you want to arrive early. Account for traffic. You want to plan to go there early, and that way you can really minimize your stress. So if you kind of know all these things, you're settling yourself down with what the expectations are. You know where you're going. You know that, hey, there's traffic this time of day if you're going early in the morning, or if you're going midday, you know what to expect for traffic. But you want to account for that and then leave a little bit extra early so that you get there ahead of time, know where you're going to park. Depending on where you're taking the exam, some places it can be really difficult to find parking. Make sure you know where you're going to go and what the chances are you're going to be able to find a parking spot that's close enough for you to be able to get there and be on time. You don't want to be stressed out because you've already spent a lot of time prepping, getting ready. It's a big buildup for you. Yeah. So know all of the things that you can control 100%. Figure those things out in advance so that you can take a deep breath and be relaxed. And then you're going to go in there. You'll have a smooth check-in process, the things that Michelle covered. And then you're going to go in and you're going to take your exam and you're going to pass it. And with the proper preparation, I think most people really do quite well on the exam. I think most people would agree that if they'd spent a little bit more time prepping, they would have passed it. And a lot of people that don't pass it, sometimes they only miss it by maybe 4 or 5 questions or 6 or 7 questions. So you're right there. And the people who miss it and do horrible on it, it's usually because they didn't prep and they really weren't ready, but they went and took it anyway on a chance that just maybe they could guess their way through it. But it's not really the best strategy, right? You want to feel good. I kind of tend to want to over prepare. And you know what? If you end up not passing it, you can always take it again. It's not the end of the world. But be familiar with all the exam procedures, how you're going to get there, traffic, all those little things. It'll take the pressure off of you because you're not going to be worrying about that stuff. You know, you just want to be relaxed and don't don't be like trying to look at notes while you're driving there in the car. I think we're going to cover that later, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of things, to do's and not to do. So we'll talk more about that stuff later.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I just one more thing I would add: eat a good breakfast. Right? You're gonna be pretty miserable if you walk in, you didn't eat, you're kind of upset with the traffic, and you're not feeling good, and then you're hungry.
Being hangry is not the business.
No.
Yeah, and the other thing is too, like if you're a coffee drinker, some people get anxious when they drink coffee. So
yes.
know yourself.
No.
Caffeine, if you didn't eat much, and you don't want to eat a real heavy breakfast where you become lethargic, but if you normally drink coffee, well, maybe just drink a half a cup of coffee or something, because if you're tensed up or stressed a little bit about the exam, the coffee can make you even more anxious. So just know yourself and know that about going in to take the exam.
Yeah, definitely. Well, these have been a lot of great tips. A few of them I didn't know when I was taking the exam, and I wish I did. But these are a lot of great tips. And for those of you getting ready to take your test, it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. And you're going to have a whole new future ahead of you. So if you like this video, see our next video where we're going to talk more about mindset, and like and subscribe our channel. See you in the next video. Thanks.
And that will be part 2.
Part 2.
Yes.
All right.